So let's see what they talked about the industry outlook. The outlook for my business is positive. 63% agreed with this statement, right? 45% agreed. 18% said they extremely agreed. So about 2/3 think the outlook for their business is positive. That's great, right? About a quarter sort of unsure, and some folks disagreeing, right? But that's good. That's for their business, right? Things are looking good. It's probably because there's just not a lot of mechanics. There's a lot of pilots out there and owners that need maintenance, right? So as a shop, you're getting a lot of demand right now. On the flip side, I'm optimistic about the future of GA. Our mechanic, less than half agreed with the statement, 43%, with 32% neutral and 25% disagreeing, right? So, okay, they're optimistic about their business, but the future of GA, they're not so optimistic. Look at this. So only 35% agreed. Barely anybody extremely agreed. A lot of folks are on the fence, right? So a third are on the fence, a third are kind of agree with this statement, and a quarter disagree, right? There seems to be a sea change. This is one that we're watching, and I think it goes back to those challenges. They're not improving. So what do you do? What does the future look like for GA? This is something we need to keep an eye on, right? So less than half agreeing with the statement was something that surprised us. I feel proud to be part of this profession. Over half strongly agreed, and over 92% agreed. So we saw it in the quote. The things that are keeping the folks in this industry are pride of their work and the love and passion for GA. It's not for the money, right? This is a pain in the butt. If you looked at all the challenges, if you looked at the fleet, the cash strap owners, we saw all of this. So what's keeping this together? It's pride and it's love, right? This is the thing that's making GA work, right? And that's not fair to the maintainers. That's not fair to the industry. We have to think about how to solve some of these challenges. So, this is a starting point for that discussion. So who responded to the survey? Just to give you a sense of who these people are. Again, they were anonymous, but we asked them to give us some information about how big their shop was, what type of aircraft they worked on, and what they charge for their shop rate. So 96% of the people in the survey worked on piston fixed wing, right? So that's bread and butter GA, baby, all the way. 35% or a third-ish worked on turbine fixed wing. About a fifth worked in helicopter, 5% other. We have a few guys working on balloons and gliders and other funny stuff out there. I throw that in the other category. But this is typical of your GA. If you mapped out the number of aircraft, this is kind of what you might see at your local airport, right? In terms of who's taxiing on Alpha, right? Or who's ready for takeoff. It's these statistics are pretty similar. Maybe not 20% helicopter, depending on where you live, but again, very highly oriented towards turbine and piston. Shop size, we have a 35% or solo shops, right? These IA, side work, moonlighters, that kind of thing. Another third, or a little over a third, were 2 to 4 A&Ps working at the shop. I call those the small shops. About 19 plus 10, call it, this is a medium. So 5 to 9 A&Ps or 10 to 50 A&Ps, a medium shop. And then, mega shops, right? Or mega companies, smaller representation, but pretty typical for GA. Again, where we tend to play is that small to medium, right? Those tend to be our customers. It's GA. They're doing 100-hour annual inspection type work, piston or small turboprops. And that's so it's interesting. We got all sorts of different types of shops responding in similar fashion. Number of aircraft worked on per year, depending on what type of shop you are, this is the average number of aircraft they worked based on that. So if the one-man shop is doing on average 23 aircraft a year, the small 2 to 4 man shop was doing on average 46 aircraft a year. The medium 5 to 9 person shop was doing 78 aircraft a year on average, and the large shop was doing 180 on average. Now, so depending on what size of shop you are, this might give you an orientation of how much volume you're doing. Obviously, it's not apples to apples, depending on what type of aircraft you're working on, what your area type of aircraft in your area, but this is a good starting point. And in terms of how much the shop rate differed, we typically saw shop rates on the left go up as you increase in size, right? If you go from solo to small, medium, and large, you see that shop rate go up, right? From $100 on average an hour to $150 an hour, right? These are just averages. And then that variability on the right, they call this a box and whiskers plot. This right here is the median for these, right? You can think of that as sort of the chart on the left, and then the range. So a solo shop might be between 50. We have guys who are $50 all the way to $150. A small 2 to 4 man shop might have been somewhere at $75 to $160. A 5 to 9 man shop might be $100 an hour to $180. And a larger medium shop might be $110 to $200 an hour, right? So the variability seemed to get a little bit tighter with the smaller side. 10 to 49 was higher, I think, probably because we got some flight schools in there or bigger 135 operators. But for the most part, you can see it tightening. It's more standardized as you get bigger. The range narrows to some extent. And depending on what type of shop you are, again, you might find this interesting. Where do you fall into the range based on the percentiles here on the right? How does that, a lot of folks will say, well, it depends on what region you live in. So let's take a look at that. Again, it's true. Depending on what region you live in, the shop rate changes. So Midwest, that central Midwest is 104 on average, dollars an hour. That West Coast, includes Hawaii and Alaska, was 129, right? One of the higher areas. $117 $1.93 on average in the Southwest, and 115, 116 in call it that Southeast and New England or Northeast. It's kind of the same. So just differing shop rates, again, depends on where you live, depends on your demographic. This is a great starting point if you're thinking about, okay, where do I fit in? The average is a good place to start, and then you sort of adjust based on the needs of what you're trying to do and what type of work or shop you're trying to run. We wrote a piece a few months ago on the price of a 172 annual, and we tried to ask the audience. We asked hundreds of shops, what do you charge for a 172 late 1970s inspection only, and give us your repeat customer rate. And essentially, here's what we got back from the crowd. And again, we had people who charged $800, right, on the low end, and we had people who charged all the way up to $4,000. And it's the same, it's an annual, but what they're doing is different. We saw everything from 8-hour annual inspection to a 25 plus, right, annual inspection, with the 15 to 16 and $2,000 as being the average. Again, this was super interesting just to see and hear how people looked at it. Variability of shop is going to matter probably a lot more than where you live, but for folks watching this, right, it really comes down to how are you doing your maintenance, how are you doing your inspection, and then the more important part in some cases is how are you communicating that to the owner of the aircraft about what you're doing? Because at the end of the day, that owner maintainer communication is key with whatever you're doing. All right, some folks might be okay with just a 8-hour inspection. Some folks may appreciate the 25-hour detailed inspection. It just sort of depends on your shop, how you want to do it, and how your customer reacts to it. So again, these is not the end all be all based on the regional prices that you see here. There's a lot of variability that goes into shop rates. So that's it. Hopefully you guys learned something on the state of GA, right? Some of the charts, some of the good things, some of the things to keep an eye on. But ultimately, GA is a ecosystem that is the driver, right, of passion and folks that are either pilots or mechanics, right, to go and support airline or charter, everything related to aviation. And we want to make sure we protect general aviation, that we don't forget about it, right? The world's not just going to run on airlines and big business jets. We want to keep that passion alive. We're not all in this to make a quick buck, right? That's not why people fall into aviation. They fall into it because they're passionate or they want to learn, or they went to their local airport and they knew a pilot, right? It happens in different ways for all of us. If anything in this presentation resonated with you, please reach out to me. My email's on the left. My phone is also down there on the down left. If you're interested in how software or tools can help you, or you want to join our movement of building great products for GA, maintenance, and compliance, please sign up for a 10-day free trial. Just go to www.airworthy.com. Thank you.